Let's ask someone who was at the hearing today what may have been gained from questioning the oil executives.
Republican Congressman Michael Burgess from Texas joins us now. Congressman, what is frightening is the idea that other companies may be using exactly the same devices to pump oil from those deep wells as BP was using on their well that broke. Is that possible, and should those ever be allowed to pump oil again?
Well, I think we heard from at least one of the CEOs who was there today that not only were best practices not followed, but when they have encountered wells that are giving that much difficulty, they haven't hesitated to stop and shut the well in if necessary. I mean, I asked very specifically, Mr. Tillerson, have you ever closed out a well where you were experiencing this much difficulty? And the answer was, yes, we have. So it's not even just a question of perhaps not using the best practices. It was also called into question some of the judgment calls that may have been made along the way. And this is where, of course, we'll end up having to go in the investigation. It is terribly difficult to get this information during these types of congressional hearings, and today really was one of those show trials that Congress loves to do in order to push a particular agenda. In this case, I think some of the members of the committee were pushing a cap and trade bill, but really America wants us to cap that well, and then we can talk about the other aspects of energy policy that may be wanting.
Although you could argue you did get some decent information out of it, the likes of which you just outlined, but you know, the Wall Street Journal had some information too. They had memos from BP just 4 days before the rig blew up, and in it, one of the memos where there was some question about these safety issues that they had scrimped on. One person at BP said, quote, "Who cares? It's done. End of story. It will probably be fine." How much more of that is there? Do we need to dig up more of that? And then what?
Well, I'll tell you what, a week ago, we were down in Chalmette, Louisiana, and we had a field hearing down in the St. Bernard Parish. And we heard from two of the ladies who'd lost their husbands on these rigs. And both of those ladies said that the discussions that their husbands had with them, telephone calls, emails, family time when they were back online, talked about the amount of safety regulations that, in fact, were not being followed. Both ladies said that there were significant safety regulations in place. We probably didn't need any more. We just need somebody who had the courage to enforce the ones that were in existence. And mind you, these were both individuals who'd lost family members on the disaster that happened on the rig. In fact, one of the individuals said her husband took out additional insurance. So much was his concern about some of the practices that he saw on the rig. We did not get any of that information 2 weeks ago when we had the big CEOs from BP and Halliburton and one of the other companies, or Transocean, on the dais there in front of us. We probably should interview more of the people who were either on the rig or who had family members in direct communication with men who were on the rig, in this case 2 men that were lost.
Do you have any information? Did you discover information today that would lead you to believe that sounds, what you're describing, it sounds almost like criminal activity, and of course there is a criminal investigation on that. It's going on other rigs that BP is operating?
Well, I'm not aware of criminal investigation going on other rigs, but clearly this has got to be, I mean, the Coast Guard is holding the inquest or inquiry, and this does have to be part of their activities as well, because this is something that happened on the high seas.
That's the thing. And when you talk about the information you were getting from the families, a couple of weeks ago, again, I cite the Journal, where they had an interview with a woman who immediately grabbed, as soon as the fire started, grabbed an emergency phone and said, "SOS Mayday, there's a fire on board." And one of the BP executives that was giving a tour said, "You had no authority to make that call." I mean, what is going on in these people's minds, Representative?
Well, and that is a big question, because ultimately there were several BP executives on the rig, any one of whom could have called a halt to activities that afternoon or evening when they were getting these anomalous readings from the testing that they were doing, when some of the concerns were happening because of the kicks they were getting that evening. Somebody could have said, "Let's stop this now until we get control of this thing," and unfortunately no one did.
Congressman Michael Burgess, it does sound like you're getting more useful information out of these hearings. I know people like to grandstand at them, but it sounds like they're valuable hearings. We thank you for coming in today, sir.
Thank you.
Well, there'll be more to come this week, so stay tuned.
Appreciate it. We will.
Could the oil spill